Good to see y'all, man. Literally, it's good to see y'all here this morning. My name is Troy. I'm one of the pastors, and grateful to have you. I was out last week. Julie and I, thank you for letting us have a weekend off. We took a little quick trip with our kids. School's coming, so we just want to get out of town, and appreciate y'all letting us get away. But man, I missed you, and I'm glad to be back here today. Ben, there's something a little different about him. I mean, he's got a lot of faith, and God's able. I wonder why he was saying, it's because he got married 2 weeks ago and just got back from his honeymoon. Maybe that's why he's got full of faith and God's able to do anything. Anyway, but also, I want to give a shout out to Sean Rainey, our executive pastor, who's filled in last week. Man, great message. If you missed it, great little message. Just really practical, good thoughts about how God wants to use what you have, whatever you have. The good, the bad, God wants to use that for His purpose to help other people. And man, it was a great message. Hope you check that out. If you want to catch it online, you can do that. And today, I'm going to segue on that. I didn't mean to, but man, I think this message is connected to that because I want to talk to you about something that everyone here has that God would like to use. And I hope this encourages you. In fact, normally we do a series, and today's just kind of a standalone. Next week, I'm starting a brand new series. I'll talk about that in a second. But today, as I was out this week, I just really felt compelled to share this with you today. And I hope that this encourages you. And challenges you. I just want to, as a pastor, pastorally, I just want to push you and nudge you a little bit in an area, and hopefully this will be helpful. Is that okay with y'all? Doesn't sound like it, but are we going to do all right? Well, hopefully this will encourage you. I'm going to start out by just asking you a question, and you might be able to. Have you ever gotten an invitation from someone, and at first you felt honored to get it? You're like, wow. They asked me to come, But then later on, you realize that you probably weren't the first choice. Has that ever, that happened a lot to me in high school. You know that, JB. I was always second or third choice up there, and or fourth, somewhere down on the list, and that's happened. I had a memory this week of when I was in college. Way back in the 90s, that was the last century for those of you who don't know. I had a good friend named Mike, and Mike was really charismatic. He's just a very popular, great guy. And he came up to me one day and goes, "Troy, oh man, I am doing something really important, and I would like to invite you to help me do it." I'm like, "Really? Well, what is it?" And he's like, "Well, this election that's coming up is super important, and people really need to get out and vote." And I'm like, "Yeah, totally, I agree. What can I do?" And he goes, "Well, I am doing a voter registration table at my church, and I could really use your help with this to get people to register to vote." And I'm like, "When?" And he's like, "This Sunday." I'm like, "I'm in." What time? 8 o'clock. Cool. So that Sunday morning, I showed up at church early, met Mike, and we set up a couple of tables, 2 tables, one at each entrance to the church so that no one could get through without getting talked to. And so I took one of the tables, and I was there, and one by one, as people walked up, I enthusiastically welcomed them. "Hello! Hey, you want to register to vote?" And it was fascinating. About 1 out of every 4 or 5 people that came by said, "Yeah, I'd like to register," and they did, and it was great, and it was rolling. But then something weird happened. 2 or 3 guys that I knew and was connected with walked up, and when they saw me at the table, they went, "How much did Mike offer you to do this with him?" And I went, "What?" They're like, "How much did he offer you to give you to do this?" And I'm like, "Nothing." And they're like, and they kind of snickered, and they walked away. And I went, "What's going on here?" And it instantly dawned on me that I was not Mike's first choice. He had asked all his other friends, and probably everyone said no until he came to sucker me. And I said yes. And I instantly felt duped. I mean, I just was like, it was just like the joy that was in me a few minutes later just evaporated. I was invited to do something good, and I was really happy about that, and it was just gone, and my enthusiasm began to wane. And for the remainder of that time out there, I didn't really greet people enthusiastically. I just kind of waved sheepishly, and and people walked by one, and no one stopped at the table. And then right before the service was about to begin, I was collecting the pins and the cards and getting my table all squared away. Someone walked up to the table and they asked me, "Hey, what's going on here? What are you doing?" And without looking up, I just said, "Oh, we're voter registration, but we're closed." And this voice said, "Oh, I'm kind of new here. I would really like to register." And I looked up, and OMG, there was this cute little blonde standing right there at the table with a dynamite smile. I mean, it was just bright. And I was like, hi. You would like to register? Here, then please fill out this card for me, if you would. And so she took the card and she filled it out quickly, and then she handed it back to me. And as she handed it to me, she sweetly said, "Thank you. Thank you for doing this." I was like, "Oh, it's nothing, just being a good citizen." And I saluted her, and that was just a dorky move, man. It was just like, and she kind of nervously giggled and walked away. And as she walked into the church, I looked down at the card to see what her name was, and her name was Julie. Julie C. Cox. And I remember thinking Cox as in fox. And I thought, okay, and I just need to confess to you and everyone else that day I broke one of the first rules of voter registration. I copied down her phone number for my own personal use, man. I'm like, thank you, Jesus, for dropping this in. And later that week, I called her and asked her out on a date, and 25 years later, and two children, yeah. I am so glad that I accepted my friend's invitation to help. Even though I know I wasn't his first or second or even his third choice. Now that's a true story. And that story is a great example of this truth right here. And that is a simple invitation can change your life. Right? I mean, even an imperfect and kind of funky invitation can change your life. And when you look at that and you think about that and you think about your life, you know that that's kind of true. If you look back on your life, you will see that there were moments in your life that were changed simply because of an invitation. For example, maybe it was an invitation to an event, like to go to a wedding or something, or a party, and you went and you met somebody there, and it started this relationship or this friendship that's kind of lasted a lifetime. Or maybe it was an invitation to a school. Maybe a college sent you an acceptance letter, and they were like, "Dear so-and-so, we'd like to formally invite you to come and study at our school." And you went to that school, and the rest is history. Or maybe it was a job offer. Maybe a company invited you to come work for them, and you moved to a new town or a new city, and you kind of started this whole new life there. Or maybe just someone, invited you to get married, and you said yes, and everything changed. I think looking back, all of us would agree that there are some of the biggest moments in our life we had started with an invitation. And I would suggest to you that this is especially true for those of us who are Jesus followers. This is how it worked. I mean, those of us who are following Jesus, when you look back at your faith journey, your personal journey, it was most likely an invitation that was the starting point to faith in your life. Maybe someone invited you to church and you went, or maybe someone back in college invited you to go to some little Bible study, and or they invited you to go have a cup of coffee. And back then you weren't sure what you thought about faith or religion or Jesus or any of that, but you knew this person, and you liked this person, and so you went to coffee. And you had a conversation, maybe a couple conversations, and you liked the way that they talked to you about this, and they asked you some questions that kind of sparked at least a little curiosity in you. And then you might have asked a few questions, and then you thought about it, and then one day they might have invited you to come to church with them, and you went, and all of that kind of changed you and changed your life forever. And now looking back, you are grateful for the invitation that they gave you. I know this is true for me. I don't know if it's for you, but it is true for me. Sometimes people ask me about my story. They're like, how did you become a pastor? And I can always hear the sarcasm in that comment, and I get it. It's a little weird, and it was a weird journey. But sometimes what they're asking is, hey, how did you get to be a part of church and involved in church? Because I wasn't raised in this, and so they'll ask that story. And anytime someone asks me that question, I tell them about this invitation that I got from my girlfriend's mom back in 1989. The true story. That is the beginning of my faith journey. I was dating this girl. She was probably about 19 or so, and her mom, wanted to meet me. She had heard about me, and so she wanted to meet me, and we kind of put together this meeting. And when we met, I was surprised. She was nice to me. I mean, clearly I thought she was going to be antagonistic, but she was nice to me, and she seemed interested in my life and interested in me. Which, at that time, truth was, my life was kind of boring. I had just dropped out of college. I was working at a warehouse unloading trucks. This was not what I thought my life was going to be. And to be honest, I was depressed. I was smoking a lot. I was drinking. I just turned 21, and I really felt like my life had hit a dead end, that at 21, it was kind of over. And I'm just like, man. And so this mom, her name was Anna, by the way, she invited me to go to church with them. Now, that was a pretty big ask. I hadn't been to church maybe definitely not since like I was 5. I went on a bus thing. I went to VBS where the bus picked me up. That was the last time I'd been to church. I had no idea. I had no idea what to expect. I mean, I had some ideas, kind of, but I didn't. And it's such a big ask, but you know what? She was so nice, I decided to try it. And when I went, I was surprised. It was different. The music wasn't old hymns on an organ, which nothing against that. That wasn't my jam. Instead, it was upbeat. They had guitars and drums, and people were moving around a little bit. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And the lyrics, I could understand them. Those old hymns, I didn't know what I was singing, but man, I could understand this. The pastor, when he came out, he surprised me. He wasn't wearing a robe like I thought he would be. He didn't have one of those little backward collars on. He just looked normal. And he kind of talked normal. In fact, his message made complete sense. I was able to follow it all the way. I knew where he was. I understood, and he basically just talked about life. He mentioned Jesus a few times, but at that time I didn't know Jesus from Adam. I mean, I had no background in this, but what he said about Jesus, it seemed interesting to me. And then after church, Anna invited me to lunch at their house, and free meal, that's my gig. I said, yeah. We went and we talked. We talked about the message, and it was interesting to hear her take on what he said. And after lunch, I left and I went home, and I thought about it a little bit, some more. And the next week, through her daughter, she invited me to go to church with him again. And I appreciated her kindness so much that I couldn't say no. And so I went. And after church, she invited me to lunch again, and we talked some more. And over the next few weeks, she asked me some questions, some good questions, and she invited me to read some passages in the Bible. She's like, hey, you ought to, go here, check this out, read that. And little by little, and inch by inch, my heart opened up to God. For the very first time in my life, God kind of was on my radar a little bit. And today, I am eternally grateful to her. I am grateful to, I'll just say it, Anna Chapman, for taking the time to talk to me, some ding-dong, 21-year-old, catting around her daughter. She talked to me, and I'm grateful that she invited me to investigate Jesus, because that was a turning point in my faith journey. And maybe some of you can identify with this, that you too were invited by someone to look at Jesus. Maybe it was a grandparent who kind of did that, or maybe it was a friend or a coworker, or maybe a neighbor or a roommate, or maybe it was a girlfriend or a boyfriend, or maybe it was the mother of your girlfriend. I doubt it, but maybe that's how it worked for you. Either way, through all of that, your life was changed, and you are grateful because of their invitation. Which leads us to a question, and it's a question I want us to, as a church, wrestle with today. Here's the question. Are we inviting? Are we inviting? Let me put it this way. Are we offering others the same thing that we ourselves have benefited from? Are we passing it on in that way? This is really a no-brainer. It should be easy. Inviting people to something good should come natural to us. We have no problem telling people about something we saw on Netflix or some restaurant we ate at. But it just makes sense. But the truth is that we often don't do this. We often don't do it. I think we kind of sometimes hesitate when we think of it, or maybe we resist, I'm just not going to do that. It's personal, or we get a little defensive. In fact, some of you right now, your palms are starting to sweat. You're like, oh my gosh, is this where we're going today? Is this what we're going to talk about? And I just want to diffuse that and just say relax. Relax, because I'm not going to bang away on this one. Because the truth is that we all kind of struggle with this a little bit, right? I'm a pastor. That kind of makes me a professional Christian. And I struggle with this too, man. I have friends I play pickleball with and people I know from restaurants and the store that I'm always thinking about, I gotta invite them. And sometimes I just overthink it, or I'll overcomplicate it and I'll talk myself out of it. And I wonder why is that? And so this week while I was away, I thought about why do we do this? What are some of the reasons? And I came up with a few reasons why we hesitate to invite. And I came up with 4. Now, this isn't scientific, but my sense is that one of these will probably connect with you. The first one that I came up with is that we don't want it to get weird. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? We just don't want it, our friendship to get weird, because whenever Jesus seems to get mentioned, things can get a little weird. You know what I'm talking about? I definitely know this. Whenever people find out that I'm a pastor of a Christian church, it always gets a little weird. People, the way they talk, what they say, their posture, pastor, and I don't want that. In fact, this week I was on a plane and I was at the back of the plane. I came to my seat. I had a free ticket, so my family was up front. I was in the back, and I sat down, and sure enough, the conversation, hey, hi, what do you do? And the lady, she turned to me, she goes, what do you do? And I thought, do I tell her the truth? Because I don't want it to get weird. It always gets weird, and I just want people to be at ease. And so I came with an idea. I said, you know what? And so I said, I actually lead a large nonprofit in my town. And she's like, really? What? Tell me about it. I said, it's great. We do a lot of help. We help a lot of people. We encourage people. We help them with whatever they need. We help people meet other people and connect. And together, we are working together to make our community a better place. She's like, wow, that sounds amazing. What's the name of it? I went, Steamboat Christian Center. She's like, that sounds like a church. Is that church? I go, it is. She goes, are you a pastor? I am. And it got weird. She's like, wow, that's great. Hey, I got to make this quick phone call real quick. And that was kind of the end of it. And so it just always gets weird. In fact, some of you know this. You've invited me to your house to some party. You have a bunch of friends over. And as soon as I get there, it gets weird, right? I walk in and someone sees me and they're like, oh, Pastor Troy's here. And everybody snaps, and the hush comes over the crowd. People, some guy was in the middle of a joke, and he's like, later, I'll tell you that. And people hide their beers. Hey! And I'm like, bring me a beer. Go, please finish that joke. I need material for Sunday. Please help me. And it just always gets weird. Whenever Jesus or God gets mentioned outside of this room, things always get a little weird. So I get that. Another reason that we don't invite is I think we don't think we have all the answers. We're in process. We're figuring this out. And we worry that, we talk to someone about God. They're going to ask us some question about God and we won't know the answer. And we're like, man, I don't know enough. I'm not qualified enough. And so we just we're a little shy about talking to people and inviting people to check it out. Another reason I know this is true, especially in Steamboat, it's just inconvenient to invite people because we got our stuff that we're doing and our things that we're into, and I just don't have time to get involved in other people's stuff. And you know that if you invite someone to your church, you're stepping into their world a little bit, right? You're now going to have to be involved in whatever, and you got your own junk. And you don't want to be involved in someone else's junk. And it's like, oh, I don't know if I have time for this. I don't want to go there with them because then I get pulled in and it gets in. And so it just is inconvenient. And so we kind of move on. Or the last one, and this is a biggie. I think this is one that many of you agree with. We hesitate to invite because of people's view of the church. I think, I don't know if you've noticed, but the church doesn't have a great reputation right now. It's not the best. I mean, it just seems like there's always some story out there, some news story about some pastor or some church saying or doing something stupid. And you're just like, I don't want to be lumped in with them. I don't want to be connected to that. And I get it. And so we kind of go underground with our faith. But here's the thing, regardless of all those reasons, the truth is that we are grateful for the people who did invite us, right? I mean, we're grateful for that person. And the truth is that Anna, she probably had the same hesitations and the same reservations that I do. But thank God that she didn't let that stop her from talking to me about this. I mean, she didn't overthink it. Whoever talked to you, they didn't overthink it. They didn't overcomplicate it. They just simply invited you. And their invite changed your life. Right? And so what I want to do, I just be real quick. I want to show you an example of this from the New Testament, a quick story from the New Testament. And what I'm about to read to you happened way back in the first century. But man, it's totally a great example for us here in the 21st century, especially because of the kind of church that you and I go to here. This story involves Jesus and two of his disciples, Philip and Nathaniel. These are kind of mid-level disciples. You kind of know the 12. There's Peter and Judas and James, but these two are kind of mid-level, Philip and Nathaniel. And what I want to do is I want to read their story, but I want to start at the end. I want to start with the punchline where it crescendos, and then we'll go back and we'll watch how it got to this spot. In John chapter 1, verse 49, John tells us a story, and he ends the story with Nathaniel saying these words to Jesus. He said this. He said, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Kings. You are the King of Israel. Now that is not that is not a small statement. That's a pretty big deal. You are God in a bod standing in front of me on this planet. That's what he's saying. That's a big deal. Clearly, this was a big moment in Nathaniel's life. This was a moment that everything changed, this realization, right? It's a moment that I bet you Nathaniel years later would look back on and say, you know what? I was never the same person after that. That light bulb went on, whole worldview, everything changed. And like I said before, a lot of us here have had a similar aha moment like that. And it's something that we want others around us to experience as well, right? I mean, it's so real to us that we want others to do it. And so what led to this moment for Nathaniel? This is fascinating. Let's go back a few verses and watch how this happened. In verse 43, context, Jesus had just been baptized by John the Baptist down at the Jordan River, right? And in verse 43, it says this, that the next day after that happened, Jesus decided to leave for Galilee. In other words, Jordan River was way down south, and he decides to go north up to the Sea of Galilee, the big lake up there. And on his way, he comes across this guy named Philip. And finding Philip, Jesus says to him, classic Jesus, come, follow me. Now, this is Jesus' invite. This was his standard thing, which, by the way, is interesting. If you're not a church person, you're checking this out, you need to check this out. Jesus' invite is interesting. He wasn't inviting, you'll notice this, he wasn't inviting anybody to follow a bunch of rules. He wasn't inviting anybody to follow some religion. He was inviting people to a relationship. He said, I want you to follow me. This is what we got. I want you to follow me. And so in verse 44, it says this. It tells us a little bit, John tells us a little bit about Philip. Philip, just like Andrew and Peter, were from the town of Bethesda. In other words, three of Jesus' earliest disciples, first disciples, were from the same village. Bethesda, which was this little village that's on the shore of the Sea of Galilee there. And get this, Andrew, Peter, and Philip were all fishermen. They all were in the same business, and apparently they all decided as adults to leave their business behind. They dropped their nets, and they decided that they were going to follow, whatever that meant, this rabbi named Jesus. Now, it was still early in Jesus' ministry, but they had seen enough to know by now that Jesus was a real deal, that there was something extraordinary about him, and they knew that. And so apparently, at some point in their conversation, they decide, you know what, we should tell Nathanael about this guy. He would get this. We need to go tell Nathanael about Jesus. And so Philip leaves to go look for Nathanael. In verse 45, it says this, that Philip found Nathanael, and when he found him, he told him this. He said, hey, guess what? We have found the one. We found the one that Moses wrote about and that all the prophets in the law had foretold, this Messiah. We have found him. Now, there is so much loaded into this comment that I can't break it all down, especially for first century Israelites. I mean, this was a big deal. Why? Because for 1,000 years, the Israelites had been waiting and looking for their Messiah, this one that had been promised to them, this one that was going to come. They had been waiting for this king that would come and lead them. And it wasn't just going to be any king, it was going to be a good king, the best king, the King of Kings. They'd been waiting for that. And when Philip finds Nathanael, it's like, hey, the one that we all been looking for, we found him. Yeah, the one that Moses wrote about 1,000 years ago, the one that the prophets foretold, he's here. In fact, he's right over here. And so he tells Nathanael about this, and then he tells him a little bit more about him. He says his name is Jesus. He is the son of Joseph from Nazareth. Now, you and I can read that statement pretty quick, and we do. But what Philip was telling Nathanael there was filled with details on purpose. It was pretty detailed on purpose. He's like, the Messiah's name is Jesus. Now, that was a pretty common name at that day and age. So he gives him a little more information. He says, it's the Jesus whose dad's name is Joseph, the one from Nazareth. Now, Nathanael's response to this is kind of surprising. You expect him to say, wow, really? You found the one. The one. You found him? That's great news. You'd think he'd be excited, but instead, Nathanael gets hung up on one little piece of information. He gets hooked by something he said. He goes, did you say Nazareth? Nazareth? In fact, I added the question marks and the exclamation point. Literally, he's like, Nazareth? Really? In fact, if Nathanael was writing a text to Philip today, this is how he'd write the text. He'd put this little emoji up there. He'd go, are you kidding me? Nazareth? No, look, man. And then Nathanael says something that's interesting. He's like, can anything good come from Nazareth? And there's obviously some cultural context that's missing from that. In other words, we don't know why he said that. People who were reading this in the first century would have known exactly what he meant. But we look at that and we're like, what's the problem with Nazareth? What's a big deal in Nazareth? It'd be like if one of you today after church, you wrote down on your journal, you're like, after church today, we went to Freshies for lunch. And 1,000 years from now, someone reads that and goes, what's Freshies? We all know Freshies is rock. It's awesome, right? Or maybe, I went to church today and then we went to Hypnotic Chicken. And people 1,000 years were like, what is that? That sounds weird. Right. Well, we don't know what Nathanael meant. But we can understand it'd be like if I said, yeah, he's from Craig. Did I just do that right now, man? I'm from Craig. I can do that. You'd be like, Craig? Yeah. No, I'm from Craig. Okay. But we don't know what he meant, but we can deduce that Nazareth was not a very beloved place. For one reason or another, people looked down on people from Nazareth. We don't know. And so here's my point. Don't miss this. Nathanael is questioning this. He's like, what? He's skeptical. He's like, he's hesitant to believe what he's hearing. Not unlike people are with us today, right? I mean, people today are like, can anything good come from that? Some people saw you leave this morning, your house, and go to church, and they're like, can anything good come out? Why do they waste their time? Can anything good from going to church? Can anything good come from being a Christian? I don't think so. I've met a few Christians. No, thank you. I don't get it. I'm just saying that a lot of people around us have the same kind of questions spinning in their head. And whenever you and I bring up God or we bring up church to people, their response internally is, why in the world would I ever go there? I mean, is there anything good going on there? I don't think so. And this is why Philip's response to Nathanael is so huge for us today. Because Philip could have tried to convince Nathanael that this was the real deal. He could have said, oh, no, let me explain. You've got it confused. Or he could have went back to the Old Testament and said, let me explain to you why the Old Testament says that the Messiah had to come from Nazareth. Or he could have started a debate. It could have turned into an argument. But instead, look at how how Philip responds to Nathanael's doubt and skepticism. He simply says, come and see. Come and check it out yourself. That's it. And that was it. There was no explanation. There was no begging. Please, pretty please, with cherry on top, would you come to me? And there was no debate. It was just a simple, come and see. Now why? Well, Philip knew that what Nathanael would experience if he came. He had been around Jesus a little bit, and he knew how extraordinary and amazing and unique Jesus really was. He had seen Jesus do some amazing things. He had heard some things that Jesus said that the heart of man had never heard before. And to Philip, Jesus was obviously the Son of God. Clearly, to him, it was obvious. God had stepped out of heaven and had landed on earth in the form of this man. He was God in a bod. And so Philip said, hey, I'm not going to oversell this. I'm not going to hype it. Just come and see. Just come and check this out. And that simple invitation changed Nathanael's life forever. Nathanael comes, and he checks Jesus out. He meets Jesus himself, and he's impressed. In fact, when he meets Jesus, Jesus says something that kind of freaks him out. In verse 47, it says this, that when Jesus saw Nathanael walking towards him, he said, oh, right here is an Israelite in whom there is no deceit. In this guy, there's no BS. This guy tells it like it is. It's black and white. This guy, he's a man of integrity. Right here. And Nathanael hears this, and in verse 48, he's like, how do you know that about me? Yeah, I've been told that I kind of tell it like it is. How do you know that? We've never met. And then Jesus says this. He says, before Philip called you and invited you, I saw you. I saw you while you were sitting under that fig tree. Before Philip invited you to come and see me, I saw you. I was looking at you while you were sitting alone under that tree. And for whatever reason, this freaks Nathanael out. And it illustrates a truth that you and I often forget. And that is this, is that we need to assume that God is already at work in people's lives before we invite them. We need to assume that God knows them. God sees them. He's working in their life. He's doing some stuff. And we're not the beginning of it all. We're just a part of it. And that he's already working in their lives before we ever invite them. In fact, our invitation, this is good. Our invitation is often just a continuation of God's work in their lives. Anna had no idea what I was going through in my life. And that time in my life, I was reading books on near-death experiences because I was looking for answers to this world that I could not find on my own. And she had no idea. God was already poking my heart, and I was ready. And so our invitation is often just a continuation of God's work in their lives, which, here's the good news, that takes the pressure off of us totally to do anything. It's not our job to convince them. It's not our job to convert them. It's not our job to change them. We just should assume that God is already at work in their life. He's already doing something, and all we simply are doing is inviting them to come check God out. And here's a truth that is true, that is that God knows exactly what people need in order to believe. If you're here this morning, and again, God knows what you need in order to believe in him. He knows the hang-up. You've got this wall, this thing that happened, and you're like, But every one of us, God knew exactly what I needed to hear for me to believe. He knew it, and he had it. And in Nathaniel's case, it wasn't much. He didn't need much. Perhaps Nathaniel was going through a thing. Perhaps he was sitting under this tree, and he was thinking, like sometimes we do. Like we're like, what the freak? What's going on? Why is this happening? Why does that have to happen in my life? And we do that sometimes. Or maybe he was praying. He's like, God, seriously, do you see what's going on? Are you seeing this? Are you watching? God, do you even see me? I mean, 5 minutes later, he walks up to Jesus, and Jesus said, hey, Nathaniel, I saw you. I see you. I see your situation. I know you. I am aware. Just want you to know. Winks at him, right? I saw you sitting under that tree. And in verse 49, Nathaniel's like, Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are my King. I'm in. That's all it took. He put his faith in Jesus that quickly. Why? Because God knew what he needed to hear that would cause him to step across that threshold. I love that. Nathaniel had his doubts and he had his questions, but everything changed in his life with a simple invitation, which kind of takes us back to what I said at the beginning, and that is this, is that a simple invitation can change a life. It's true. And again, for many of us, that is our story. That is our story. Someone in our life invited us to come and see, and we did, and we experienced the goodness of God firsthand. We tasted and saw that God was good, and we've never been the same. And we desperately want others in our life to experience the same thing, to discover this pearl of great price that we have found. And we're like, man, I have found the answer. And we want others to do it. And apparently all it takes for us is to be a little willing to go out of our way a little bit and simply invite them. To go up to our neighbor and say, hey man, our friend, our coworker, and go, hey, look, I get what I'm about to say is going to feel like left field to you. But man, I've been thinking about this. I think you would really like my church. I know it's weird. I'm not a church person. I get it. But man, I tell you, every time I go, something happens. I'll tell you this, every time I leave, I leave feeling better than when I went. And I think you would dig it, dude. I think it'd be right up your alley. And if they say yes, great. And if they say no, then just realize maybe God's still preparing them for their moment later on down the road. Last night I talked to a lady who said, her boyfriend asked her 2 or 3 times to go with him to church. When was the last time a boyfriend asked a girlfriend to go to church? Miracle. She's like, no, I ain't gone. And she wouldn't go. And she just and finally, but he said this to her. He said, listen, if you ever want to go, let me know. I'd be glad to take you. And that little seed planted in her heart. And a few months later, one day she's like, I want to go. And she went, and she said that night the message was right up her alley. It hit her. She's like, this is what I've been looking for. And she said, I've never been the same. That was her story. And so we just never know. Either way, that part is between that person and God. Our part is to simply ask and invite. Hey, check it out, right? And so let me ask you that question that I asked at the beginning. Are we inviting? Are you inviting any? Are we inviting? Are we inviting others to come experience what someone else invited us to have? All right? Here's my challenge, and then I'll end. I'll get you out. I want to challenge everyone to invite someone before the end of this year. I gave you a little time, 4.5 months. Before the end of 2025, I want to challenge you to look for an opportunity to invite someone to maybe come and check out your church or something like that. Now, I get it. You're like, man, I would, but man, I just never know when to ask. It's kind of like me, JB, you know this, when I was middle school, I was asking girls out all the time, but there was never any context. I would just walk up and, hi, would you like to go out with me? And they were just like, dude, I don't know you, and it was just always awkward. And so there was no context. And so let me give you 3 things that could give you context of when a good time would be to ask. We call them the 3 knots. The 3 knots of inviting. Listen for these knots. When someone says these statements in a conversation, let a bell go off and go, oh, I need to invite you. The first knot is when someone says, things are not going well for us right now. Like, it's hit the fan at our house, or our kids, my marriage, or our finances. You need, just not going well, you need to go, oh, hey, you know what? If you like, why don't you come to church with me, man? It might help you encourage. In fact, our church, if you're in need, our church helps people who financially need me. Just come. So that's a good one. When people are in trouble, it's a good time to invite. Another one is to invite when someone says, we're not really from here. We just moved here. We're new. We're in transition. Let that be a clue and go, oh, let me give you a gift. If you're new to Steamboat and you want to meet people, one of the best places to go Steamboat Christians there is like 1,500 people go through that church on a monthly basis. It is like one of the largest organizations. It's a great place. They're really friendly. You will meet some great people. You have a good time. We'll invite you to church. That would be a good one. And then the last knot is when someone says, I'm not really religious like you. I'm not a churchy person. Go, oh, dude, then you need to come to my church, because that church is for unchurched people. You wouldn't believe who's there. You will go there and you're like, I did not know that she went to church. I get this all the time. You don't know this. People come and tell me, and they point at you and they're like, she goes to church? I'm making a joke, but it's kind of true. People are like, I met so many people, I had no idea. And that's our DNA. From the day one, our goal was to be a church that unchurched people like to go to. That's part of our DNA. It's our bread and butter. People who don't normally attend church, they seem to enjoy coming here. I mean, there's a lot of people that are in church here that weren't at church anywhere else a while back or quit. And that's just our deal. And in fact, if you invite them, I promise you that they'll have a good experience. We get this a lot. They'll tell me, oh man, I brought my friend and she thought it was awesome. I thought it kind of sucked, but it was really good. She was like, this was, and I will tell you this, if you don't understand our church, you don't like it much, this is not your jam, if you're a Christian, you won't get this church until you sit with a friend who is unchurched and they watch it through their eyes and experience it, and they'll go, wow, that was better than I thought. I didn't have to vomit in my mouth and swallow it. That was actually better than okay. Sorry. But you can be confident. We have tried to create a come and see type of church. To just check it out. For example, next week I'm starting a new series, just a 2-part series for men. Women, you will like it, I promise you. But it's called Lion or Lamb, and there's just a lot of conversation in our culture about men and the role of men. And maybe you're a man, and you're like, man, I don't know if I'm a man. Like they want me to be a man. Man, you're going to like this. Maybe you have a husband who's not into church. Good one to invite him to, or a friend, or a neighbor, or a buddy, and say, hey, yeah, come this. In September, we're going to do a back to school bash. We do this every year. Our youth and our children do a big thing. Inflatables, packed, fun, games, prizes, all that. And we're reopening our kids' building. We've been renovating it. So it's going to be a great time. September will be a great time to invite a family that you know that has kids. Come check it out. Your kids will like it. You'll enjoy it. Get a little break. Come, be a lot of fun. So we want to make it easy for you. But like I said, odds are a simple invite from a friend or a family member changed your life forever. And if that's true, why wouldn't you do the same for someone else? At least put that on your radar. In fact, as I've been talking, some of you have had someone popped up in your mind, or maybe a name or a face, someone that you work with, or someone you live near, or someone you mountain bike with, and you're like, and here's the truth. I just want you to realize this. It is probably not a coincidence that you're in their life. You think, oh, we just met and it just happened to be friends. No, there is a good chance that God has placed you there for a reason. Remember, God is already at work in their lives. He's speaking to them. He is wooing them. In fact, the Bible says that he hovers over their bed while they sleep at night, and he's just like looking for ways to connect with his creation, to let them know that he loves them, and he wants to help them. And he's trying to show himself to them in weird ways. And your friendship and your invitation is probably just a continuation of his work in their lives. And so let's just not let a few lame excuses rob them of what could be the best gift they ever receive. Is that cool with y'all? That's my challenge, y'all. Let me pray and I'll get you out. Hey, God, let me just stop and thank you for the invitation that you've given to us. That we feel like you're mad at us or you don't want anything to do. The truth is, it's the opposite. You said if we would seek you, we would find you. You said if we just knocked on the door, you would open it up. In fact, you said, hey, behold, I stand at the door of your heart and I'm knocking. And if you would just get up and open the door, I'll come in and I'll hang out with you. I'm not going to come in and criticize your furniture or the empty pizza boxes and the dirty clothes. I'm just going to come in and hang with you because that's what I want. You are inviting that. In fact, Jesus, you said, in my Father's house are many rooms. I'm inviting people to be a part of God's family. You did so much to invite us, and we are grateful that you did that. In fact, you said, come to me, all who are weary and heavy burdened, and I'll give you rest. All of you who are burnt out, bummed out, tired, come to Jesus, and you will find something that you wouldn't expect. You'd find rest. And so thank you for the invitation that you've given us, and we've taken you up on that, and we thank you for the people in our lives in the past that were kind of a key part of that. And Anna Chapman, thank you for caring about this dumb old 21-year-old kid enough to invite me. You have no idea. You're sitting wherever you are right now. You have no idea what a difference that made in my life. Thank you. I'm grateful for that. And I want my name to show up in someone else's story as well. And so help us to be inviters. Help us to just point people, to be like one beggar telling another beggar where we found some bread. That's it. And so, Lord, we thank you for that. Help us to be that kind of church. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen? Hey, gang, thanks for coming. I want to just quickly give you a couple things. Again, next week, new series, Lion or Lamb. I think you'll love it. Number 2, if you're here this morning and you need some help, you're in trouble, you need prayer, you need some tangible help, we're here for you. This church has authorized and deputized me to help anyone in need. I'll be down here, pray with you, some of others. If you need someone, a lot of people are going to go that way, but if you need someone talk to, let me know, okay? Did you guys have a good day at church today? Amen. Went a little long. I'm sorry. God bless you. Don't miss next week. We'll see you. Have a good one.
Where you going?
Hey, buddy. How you doing, brother?